Today, we're digging into a single, massive bet that says the AI boom, this thing that feels like it's completely reshaping our world, might just be a lot more fragile than any of us think.
Okay, so let's get right into it. We're starting with a trade so huge, it's basically a giant signal flare lighting up the entire market. Look, this isn't just some small, cautious hedge. It's a loud and clear statement that someone with very deep pockets thinks a major storm is brewing for one of AI's biggest darlings.
And this is the number, $1.1 billion. Now, to be clear, that's the notional value. It means this one single trade is controlling over $1 billion worth of stock in a company called Broadcom, a company that's absolutely essential to this whole AI gold rush.
So how does a bet like this even work? Well, it's something called a put option. And honestly, the easiest way to think about it is like buying insurance for a stock. You pay a little bit of money up front, and that insurance policy only pays you back if the stock price tanks below a certain point by a certain date. It's a bet on a pretty big drop.
And that brings us to the big mystery, right? I mean, AI stocks are just blasting off. Companies are pouring billions into building out their infrastructure. So why on earth would anyone make such a huge, targeted bet that one of the main players in this whole thing is about to fall apart? To figure that out, we gotta follow the money.
So first, just to get a sense of how gutsy this bet really is, you have to understand the absolute tidal wave of cash that Broadcom is riding right now. I mean, on the surface, the argument for this company looks unstoppable.
And just look at these numbers. This is what's really wild. We're talking about the biggest names in tech: Google, Meta, Amazon, Microsoft, planning to spend what, over $500 billion combined on AI infrastructure in 2026? It's insane. And Broadcom is right there in the middle of it all, making the custom chips and hardware that makes all of this possible. They are cashing in big time.
And this chart, it just drives the point home. Look at this. Nearly half of its entire future order book, a massive $73 billion, is coming directly from AI. If you just looked at this, you'd think this is maybe the most bulletproof growth story on the planet. But while that AI story seems perfect, almost too perfect, we find our first clue that something's off in a totally different part of Broadcom's business. Its gigantic, recent buyout of a software company called VMware. So as soon as Broadcom bought VMware, they completely changed the rules of the game. They got rid of the flexible licenses that customers loved, where you buy it once and you own it. Now it's subscription only, and they're forcing customers into these expensive, all-or-nothing software packages.
And the backlash has been, well, it's been huge. Broadcom basically kicked thousands of their smaller partners to the curb. And more importantly, customers are not happy. The result? Get this. An estimated 60% of their enterprise customers are now actively looking for a way out. That is a massive number, and it points to a potential cliff in their revenue.
So if angry customers are the first crack in the foundation, our second clue comes from the people who should know the company better than anyone, its own top executives.
This is fascinating. While almost every Wall Street analyst is screaming, buy, 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 the actual insiders, the C-suite, have been selling. And we're not talking about small amounts either. We are seeing huge sales from key people, including the co-founder, Henry Samueli, and even the CEO, Hock Tan.
Let's put a dollar amount on that. $283.8 million. That's how much stock the insiders sold in just the 90 days right before this giant bet was placed, cashing out right when the stock is near its all-time high.
But here's the real kicker. The CEO himself sold off a huge chunk of his personal holdings, almost 18%. When the captain of the ship starts selling off his own piece of it, you have to wonder if he thinks there are some rough seas ahead. It's a really powerful signal.
Okay, so this brings us to the final act. How do you put all these pieces together? The unhappy customers, the insiders selling, how does that create the perfect storm that this billion-dollar trader is betting on?
It really boils down to three key ideas. First, the theory is that all this new AI revenue, while it looks great, actually has lower profit margins than their old business, which could spook investors. Second, you've got the VMware backlash, threatening to blow a hole in their revenue as customers flee. You put those two together, less profit and less revenue, and you've got a recipe for a bad earnings report. And third, you have the insider selling. That's like the final confirmation that the people who know the most might see this storm coming. So at the end of the day, this whole bet is really a bet against complacency. It's built on the idea that the market has just fallen in love with the AI story and believes it can go on forever, with no hiccups, no downturns. This quote really says it all. And this whole thing plays out on a very tight schedule. The trade was made on February 13th. It's specifically timed to catch any drama from Broadcom's next big earnings report on March 4th. And then boom, just 9 days later, on March 13th, the bet is over. It's a very targeted short-term play, a surgical strike.
Now, for this bet to really pay off, the stock needs to drop about 28%. And that might sound totally crazy, but if you look at Broadcom's own history, it's really not. It fell 27% in 2018. It fell 35% in 2022. So history tells us a drop this big isn't just possible, it's actually pretty plausible.
So here's what you should take away from all this. What we're watching is this epic clash. On one side, you have the powerful, undeniable story of endless AI growth. But on the other, you've got some pretty convincing evidence of deep problems, customer anger, insider doubt. It leaves us with one final, fascinating question. Is this billion-dollar trade a brilliant bet on a hidden weakness that everyone else is missing? Or is it just a crazy gamble against what really is an unstoppable force of technology? We're about to find out.